Hello, my name is Nai, and I wanted to create this video in order to compare 3 different models of hearing aids that I have trialed with Dr. Ray. My primary issue is auditory processing issues related to head trauma and brain injury, and my audiogram is typical or actually above average, negative 10 decibels across the board, and I'm blind from brain injury, so I use my hearing as my main way of gathering information about my environment. So, the first pair of hearing aids that I tried were from Unitron, and I will include the specific model information in the information section. These are the Unitrons, just so people know what it looks like. And I would say the top strength with the Unitrons was my ability to pinpoint the location of sounds. I was completely floored by how well I could hear where things were in space, to the point that I was even able to use ear-hand coordination to grab my cat one time. So that was definitely the major upside with the Unitrons. I'd say the downside was that speech comprehension was not much better for me. It was not really noticeably improved, and so both overlapping speech was still difficult for me to hear. I did hear words in music a bit better, and then speech in any sort of noisy environment was also very hard for me to hear, like sitting in the car while on the highway. Okay, the second pair of hearing aids that I tried were the Signias, and this is what they look like. The Signias have an extra little piece of plastic that you use to help it sit in your ear, and I would say in terms of audibility, the strength with these was speech comprehension. Like that sitting in the car on the highway situation I just described, I could hear the person driving crystal clear, even with that loud masking noise in the background, and it was much easier to hear them than with the Unitrons. The downside for me was the spatial was not as strong, so I couldn't hear 3-dimensional with cars and traffic while I was walking down the street much better than I do unaided. So that was the downside with the Signias in terms of audibility. And the third pair is the Phonaks. And here's what that looks like. I'd say that the strength with these is that they're both pretty good with speech and pretty good with spatial. They're not as strong as the Unitron or the Signia alone in each of those categories, but because they're better at both, overall I find them to be my preferred choice among these 3 brands. I would also say that they do a better job of flipping between speech and environmental sound, so they do a better job of that guesswork.
Stop video button.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was the Bluetooth pairing. I was not able to Bluetooth pair the Signias to my phone at all, so I couldn't test that. I found the Unitrons and the Phonaks both were able to pair to my phone, and most of the parts of each application are accessible with my screen reader, which is the talking software. I couldn't adjust the volume on the sliders, but I can use the buttons for that, and I could change the programs, so that was helpful. I would say between the Unitrons and the Phonaks took the cake in terms of the sound quality, especially for music. both of them did not do a very good job of conveying the sound of my own voice to other people on phone calls. Even though they both have mics built in, several people could not really understand me on the phone when using direct streaming to the hearing aid, and I basically have had to fall back to using earbuds over the hearing aids. I would also say in terms of fit, the Signias did not sit very well in my ears. I don't know how much of that is just my own anatomy, but the back part of the Signia would just keep falling off my ear at regular intervals. And so that was, hard to constantly have to put it back on. And I don't know how much that compromised the sound quality for me. Just as a note, for all three of these, I was trying the OTC setting that Dr. Ray pre-programmed. So none of this relates to customized programming, just to the out-of-the-box programming that she sets for auditory processing issues as part of this free trial. I also think that one of the reasons probably the Phonaks are the top choice is because they are just a higher price point. So some of it's just a matter of you get what you pay for. So I do think that the Unitrons and the Signias have a lot of upsides, and they could be good options for people whose auditory processing issues are more focused on one of those. Like if speech is harder for you, maybe the Signias are better. If spatial is harder for you, maybe the Unitrons are better. Those are just the thoughts running around my head. Of course, it'll vary for each person. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will include more information about the exact models and an ASL version of this same video in the information section. Thanks and bye.